Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Stepping Up to the Plate. So glad you could join us. I'm your host, Michael Vega, and I'm glad to be joined on the dais by my main man, Al Prizzuti. And Al, oh my God, what a devastating loss for the Celtics right off the bat. A loss in Game 4 that was overshadowed by the loss of Jason Tatum for the remainder of the series, the season, next season, with a ruptured Achilles tendon. For which he had surgery on Tuesday. And now the Celtics down 3-1 in the series against the Knicks with a tremendous hole to climb out of. And you wonder how they're going to respond now with their best player out of this series, out for the foreseeable future. And the thing that I immediately, what saddened me the most, Al, about this was that here's a kid who dedicated himself to his craft, made himself better, turned himself into a great player, still had to bear the slings of arrows of people who questioned how good he was. And here he was, elevating his team and himself in Game 4, 42 points against the Knicks. And at the time he got injured, yes, the Celtics had fallen behind, but you don't know what he might have done in that moments, in those ending, that might have brought him back or maybe got them level. But the thing that when I immediately saw it, I turned to my wife, Barbara, and I said, "This is not good. It's not good." I said, "This is going to be an Achilles," and those are terrible injuries for an athlete. It's an extended, protracted recovery. You don't know how you're going to return or how long it'll take you to return. There have been many instances of athletes, their careers being curtailed by such an injury. Aaron Rodgers comes to mind, and how he had his, right off the bat. But the thing that saddened me the most, Al, was that as he was being hauled off, you saw the respect from the Knicks, and that heartened me. But what saddened me the most is that that's the last time those guys will play together, because you don't know that Al Horford's going to be back by the time he gets back. You don't know that Porzingis is going to be there. He may be dealt. You don't know if Drew Holiday and or Derek White are going to be there. Certainly, I don't think Luke Cornett, Sam Hauser, maybe even Peyton Pritchard. You don't know if these pieces are going to be around when he gets back. The one guy they have to keep is Jaylen Brown. Yeah. And he's the guy they're going to turn to right now to keep the season alive.
That's a problem.
And that is, especially if he has to handle the ball, because, it's been problematic for him, and he seems to have reverted back to his old ways in terms of turning over the ball. But there's a lot of questions now that the Celtics are facing head on with regard to this group.
Well,
that's the thing that really was
let's just look at the series.
Yeah.
The Knicks have outplayed them in the second half in all the games.
Yeah,
all the games.
But they had a willing accomplice in the Celtics, Al, because you had the team that fell on their face and gave up 20-point leads.
That's what I'm saying. And the games that they've lost, they've been ahead at halftime, significantly ahead by 20 and 14 or whatever it was the other night. And then they lose the game. They were losing when Tatum went down. I think they would have lost the game anyways. So I think what's going to happen here, I think they'll win tonight.
I think so too, Al.
And I think that they'll probably lose it in New York. They could win. They could win this series. They're not going to win the championship without Tatum. Because Tatum, everybody talks about the 42 points he scores. He's a rebounder. He's an assist guy.
Defender. He gets the ball to people.
But he's an assist guy.
Yeah.
And the problem...
He had steals and blocks in that game, too.
The thing that will open up for the Celtics, though, is that other guys will be taking the shots that Tatum normally would take. I don't have a problem with White taking shots or Peyton Pritchard taking shots. I have
Drew
a little
Holiday
problem with Drew. I love Drew Holiday, but I have a problem with Jaylen Brown throwing the ball away and stuff like that. But they could come together cohesively as a team and say, it's not one guy. We all got to be doing what we need to do.
Yeah.
And they could win the game tonight at home because they're a better team than the Knicks.
Well, that's the thing, Al. The first two games, they showed they were the better team,
but
they wound up giving it away.
Yeah, well,
the third game, Al, they showed, we're the better team here in this series. And then what was astonishing, though, about Game 4 Al, the Knicks showed that they were better.
Well,
They came back and they took that game.
the
They took
Celtics
over
only
that
looked
game.
better in Game 3 because they shot the threes better.
And you know what, Al? They managed the game.
Yeah, well,
They
didn't
got
do
to
it.
20. They blew it up to 30. And then they weren't coming down, jacking up shots.
Look
They were
at
coming down
Cleveland
with
got knocked
deliberate
out.
looks, you know.
Oklahoma's struggling.
Oh, man. Well, Denver, well, they're up 3-2 now in the series.
Who?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma,
They
I
won.
know. But they're struggling in the series.
Yes.
And Cleveland gets knocked out. So this is a dice roll for whoever's going to win the championship, in my opinion.
Well,
Because it
I
won't be
think
the
right
Knicks.
now the team that it favors could be the winner of the Eastern Conference Finals. And it's going to be between either the
Pacers?
Celtics, the Knicks, and the Pacers. But right now, I don't think the Pacers want to see the Celtics. Or maybe they do. But because the Pacers are now in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Well, I think everybody wants to play the Celtics now.
Right.
I mean, so.
But the Knicks,
you
Al, they're a team of destiny, I think.
know, no, I don't
If
think
they
so.
beat the Celtics tonight, and they beat them in Game 5, and they go on to the Eastern Conference Finals to face the Pacers,
If Oklahoma
that to me-
Oklahoma gets by, they'll win it. But who knows?
I'll tell you what, I got a whole new respect for Jaylen Brown, or Jalen Brunson.
Well, Brunson.
Jalen Brunson. That guy, yeah, Mr. Clutch.
Well,
they
you
got it
can't-
right.
you
They got it
can't-
right.
You can't cover him for one reason. He falls away.
Well,
When
but
he
he's
falls away from the defender, gives him space, and he's been hitting it like
lefty, Al.
crazy.
He's a lefty too.
I know. Right?
You know, and like he dribbles to his right and exposes his left a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and I just don't understand. And there were times in Game 3 where they defended him well. They forced him to give up the ball. So that's their best play, is to take the ball out of his hands and don't let him get it, especially at the end of games. Especially if the end of game it's a close game, because that's when he does his damage.
Yeah.
And he's done his damage to the Celtics here in this series. And
You know, getting back to Tatum in a way.
Yeah.
I had an Achilles. It's a funny injury because it normally happens to the individual, not because of contact. You saw Tatum. Nobody touched him.
no,
But now, the way his foot was extended, it's almost like what happened to me in a handball, not a racquetball game. I went back
yeah.
to take a ball off the back wall, and I had positioned myself, and it almost feels like a shade going up. You know how when you're at home and
Yeah.
you go like this and the
Yeah.
shade goes up? Well, that's what
That's
it
your
felt
tendon
like to
rolling
me. And then I couldn't walk, and on top of it, I had a stick shift, and I was in Rhode Island at the time.
Oh boy.
I had to drive home, and
Was it left?
it was my
the,
clutch
the clutch foot.
foot, and
So
so
left
I
foot.
was actually clutching and
Right. Brake, clutch.
brake, and
Wow. You
But-
could have been a Formula One driver out.
no, I don't think so. I just barely made it home. But
I tell you though, but here's the other thing I wondered about. Had Jason Tatum been to the point where his body was telling him, okay, we need to stop. You've played a lot of basketball going back to last year. When you think the amount of basketball he played, all right, the series, going all the way to, the finals, winning it, then going to the Olympics, training and playing there, and then coming back with very little downtime or recovery time, and then ramping
Yeah.
up again for this season, and then getting to this point. Al, do you realize he's played 120 out of 123 playoff games in his career?
yeah, but the issue is a lot of people have done that.
And
It's a unique and
But
different.
he's a young guy.
Yeah, but it's a unique and different type of injury,
Yeah.
and you can't predict. I mean, you can't say this is the reason he played this. I mean, it happens, and it happens in very, like I said, in very strange circumstances where you would think contact would be the reason, and it's not. So
It
I feel
seldom is.
bad
It
for the
seldom
kid
is.
because he is,
Yeah.
in my opinion, the backbone of the Celtics in terms of he can do everything.
Right.
He also is a Hun, wants to shoot all the time. So in that respect, this might open up a
Their
White
offense.
or Pritchard,
Yeah.
but they've
Well,
got to be
Everyone,
on.
hey, here's the thing I would attack the rim against these guys. Go to them. Get after them. I want to see Jaylen Brown go right to the rim every time against these guys.
Well, he's
because
gotta
then
be
he's going to
careful,
get their
too.
bigs in foul trouble, and then all of a sudden they become vulnerable. You know,
I think the real problem here, the way they could win the series, because I think they could still win the series, is that not Jaylen Brown be the guy who thinks he's now Tatum. Go back to the old philosophy of we're a team,
yeah.
and we all have to play better, and we can beat this team.
I
'Cause
guarantee. You know who's going to step up tonight? I don't have to even. Al Horford. Al Horford's going to step up in a huge way in
for his
Game 5.
age, I mean, he's
Porzingis,
an
he needs to
anomaly.
step up in a huge way in Game 5.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
if he does,
and
he'll
then I
get
want to
hurt.
see some of the bench guys. Cornette may be inspired. You know, Pritchard, maybe Hauser says, "Hey, I'm coming. I'm going to step
Well,
up." tonight."
Hauser can help him because he can shoot.
and he can defend.
And he can shoot because
Yeah.
they're going to need somebody to make up 20, two guys to make up 20 and 20, 40 points, which is what Tatum can do.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to spread the points around a couple of more guys.
And you know what, Al?
And I think
that
they
makes
can
the
do it.
Celtics a more dangerous team.
Well, I think it does. Well, I think it's a team. It will be more of a team because if you talk about Jaylen Brown and Tatum, everybody goes, "Oh, that's the Celtics." It's not, and it never was. It's always. Pritchard's had a terrific year. He was the sixth man, voted
man of
the
the year.
sixth man. You got Porzingis, who, if he's healthy, he's an outside shooter. He's not as big a defender as I thought he was.
Yeah.
He's a better shooter, but you've got Hauser, you've got Drew Holiday, who's a terrific player.
Yeah.
I think all of those guys step up a little and spread it out over the 5 or 6 or 7 guys that end up playing.
Yeah.
They're as good with that team are better than the Knicks. So
And
they
I-
get by them, and then I think they can get by the
I
Pacers,
think
quite
now
frankly.
the Knicks come in with a lot of pressure. They know they're playing with house money. There may be a tendency to let down.
Well, if
I
they
think.
let down in Boston, and then the Celtics go down there and they win, it comes back to Boston, then I think Boston can win.
Yeah.
And I think they could beat the Pacers, but they ain't going to. Well, I shouldn't say they're not.
Pacers
I
are going
don't
to be
think
tough
they
out,
could
Al.
win.
I think I
everything.
said it on the show. I said the dark horse in this one's going to be the Pacers.
Well,
I
we'll
said
see.
that's a team you got to watch out for. And now here they are in the Eastern Conference Finals. But it's been an interesting run. And in the NHL, Al, unbelievable. Rock 'em, sock 'em, the Stars.
Yeah, Brad Marchand.
Love 'em.
Marchand.
Why can't we get guys like that? Al?
He's got 7 points in 6 games. The guy's all over the ice. It's a sad thing. I know they might get a first-round pick if they get through the second round, but think about this. The
Yeah.
Florida Panthers will get, the 28th, the 29th pick in the first round?
Yeah.
So
And
that's
Al,
not a
you
big
know,
deal.
And the thing is that you look at some of the people that are contributing. I see Brandon Carlo,
Brandon Carlo's a
playing
steady
some significant
defenseman.
minutes with the Maple Leafs.
He played 18. He played 18
could very well be in
minutes.
a Stanley Cup again.
Yeah, well, so could Trent Frederick, who's playing fairly well with the Oilers.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of stuff going on. I think the bigger thing for the Boston fans is Tocchet, the guy that they bring in. I know he's looking at Philadelphia and he's looking at a number of teams are looking
Wasn't he a
at him.
GM though too? At one point, Tocchet?
He might have been, but I think with Tocchet, he has an affinity for the Bruins because he played here for 2 years.
Yeah.
And he's a Bruins style coach. In other words, he was a rough, tough kid when he played.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of equates to a style that this team should play. What fascinates me about watching these Stanley Cup playoffs, and it's every year, and if people don't understand this, it drives me a little crazy. You can have a team that is good skaters, quick. When they get to the playoffs, if they don't hit,
Big. You got to be big, Al. You got to be physical. You got to take
But
another.
all
You got to be able
season,
to check.
they let things. They
Go.
don't
Oh, my
let things
God,
go.
Al.
Now they're letting these guys
Guy,
play.
it's a hackorama. I mean, guys are. You could be missing a
That's the
limb
way-
and they're not going to call a penalty.
So why don't you build a team that can win the cup, not win
the season,
the season?
the President's Cup,
And that's what the
Trophy.
Bruins
Right.
did for 2 years with Montgomery and even Cassidy.
Yeah.
They have to be a team that is built to play in the playoffs. 16 games you got to win.
But what about Paul Morris? I'd love to see
Well,
that
if he's
guy.
there,
I'd love to
I
see
like
that
Paul
guy.
Morris, I like Cooper. There's a lot of guys, but whether they're going to be there, who knows? I think the guy who Tocchet is there, and I would have liked to have seen them get Sullivan. I think he's a pretty
Yeah.
good coach. But you look at Tocchet's record with Vancouver was pretty good over the last couple of years. I
Absolutely.
mean, why he walked away from them? I think it's because he probably wanted to come back east
Yeah,
and
Be
either
an
take
original
with
six,
Philadelphia
yeah.
or the Bruins.
being an Original Six franchise.
But anyways, I think the Bruins are now a secondary. Now we watch this in a short time. We watch the Red Sox.
yeah,
I'll tell you, last night is a classic example of why this team might be a 500, a little better than a 500 baseball team. They hit last night. They scored 9 runs.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, and I just happened to look at this. Duran had 2 hits. He was 2 for 6.
Yeah,
Devers, 0 for 6. Bregman, 1 for 6.
Bregman
Campbell.
homered though.
Huh?
He homered.
Yeah, Campbell, 1 for 5.
Homered.
Abreu is their guy. He was 2 for 6. But that's 6 for 27.
Yeah.
Then you've got Sogard, 2 for 5. Navarez, 3 for 5. Geez, I can't even read my own writing. Excuse me for a second.
Who do you have? Story.
No,
Story?
Raphael was 1 for 4. Hamilton was 2 for 4. He hit a home run.
Yeah.
They were 8 for 18. That's the lower half of the order.
Yeah.
The upper half was 6 for 29.
Wow.
So they didn't. You would think it's the other way around.
Right.
Last night it was this way, but if you really look at it,
They were generating a lot of traffic out.
Bello pitched an average game. He's only going 4.2 innings.
Right.
But Whitlock again, 1 inning, 3 earned runs.
Weissert.
Weissert, 1 inning, 2 runs.
Right.
There's where you lose the game. He gives up a 3-run homer in the 12th inning.
Well, Javier Baez comes in and had 2 3-run homers
Yeah.
to tie it 6-6, and then to win it 10-9. And in each case, Al, identical pitch from 2 different Sox relievers
In my
delivered to
opinion,
Baez.
The only way
Don't
they
you
win.
think Narvaez should have said to him, let's not throw the pitch right here. Because
Well, he
this
might have
guy's
waved
gonna-
him off. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I didn't see it
don't-
either.
I didn't see it.
either, but-
He might. That's where pitches and catches got to be in tune.
Yeah.
And if he calls him off and throws the pitch that he thinks is going to get the guy out, and the guy hits a 3-run
I
homer,
would have hit him with a little high cheese, make him
well,
chase.
that's why
You know.
the only way they're going to win is with Aroldis Chapman.
Yeah.
Because he still throws. He's mean. When he's out there, people are afraid of him because he throws 102 mile an hour. He's got everything he needs, and he's a competitor.
Yeah. 3 big news items, though, Al, coming out of Major League Baseball. One was that Rich Hill was signed by the
I saw
Royals.
that,
Friend
yeah.
of the show, Rich. Congratulations, my friend. All the best to you out in Kansas City. It's a minor league contract, but this will be his 14th team he will have been with. And huge applause. We're all proud of him here in Milton, and so we want to send a big shout out to him. The other Al was Rob Manfred lifting the lifetime ban against Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson.
And about 13 others.
Yeah.
The whole Black Sox scandal team.
So do they
Now
get?
available.
Are they first ballot Hall of Famers? All of
No,
them?
I think Rose and Shoeless Jackson might be. All the other ones, they got to go before the committee, and it's not going
Right.
to happen. But I was watching the news the other night. The sports guy for Channel 5 said he thought it was a mistake. Pete Rose belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
He's probably, if you look at it, statistically wise and hustle wise, Charlie Hustle,
Yeah.
one of the best players that ever played the game.
Right.
And you know what? Baseball turned around and changed when they went to FanDuel and everybody's
Yeah.
gambling and betting. So
They're
why
in
do
bed
you,
with all these guys now.
yeah, and you might say, well, at the time it was a bad thing to do. Come on, Pete Rose belongs in the Hall of Fame. The other guy, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Ted Williams, did not vote for Gil Hodges to get into the Hall of Fame because he was pushing for Shoeless Joe Jackson to get in. First of all,
Wait a
Gil
minute,
Hodges
wait a minute.
belongs in the Hall of
Hodges was pushing for Shoeless Joe Jackson?
Fame. No, Ted.
Ted was pushing for Shoeless
Shoeless
Okay,
Joe.
that's okay.
But he also, at that time, could have voted for, he was the deciding vote to keep Gil Hodges out. And I don't believe Gil Hodges, I think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I didn't see Shoeless Joe Jackson. I think he had 3.
So that was nothing out of spite towards Hodges.
No, it wasn't, but it
was more
turns
support,
out
more support of Shoeless Joe.
It turned out to be because,
Okay.
you're talking, at that time, it would be like me saying, I'm not voting for Gil Hodges because I believe Pete Rose should be in it. Well, Pete Rose wasn't going to get in there at the time.
Right.
And Shoeless Jackson wasn't going to get in there at the time that Gil Hodges came up and Ted could have got him in. And I love Ted Williams, but I think he should have just said, you know what, Gil Hodges belongs in there. We need to address the Shoeless Joe Jackson situation a little differently,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I mean, Shoeless Joe Jackson, I think, had a 346 or 356 lifetime.
Yeah. He's a good player.
I mean, it's a great player.
Hall of Fame player.
And
So
Pete
now-
Rose, 4,000, whatever it is, hits.
Unbelievable. I'm just thinking what kind of induction ceremony that'll be for him.
Wow.
All those Reds
His daughter.
fans that'll come out, the big red machine, whoever's left, I mean, who's still alive.
Anybody who played with them, or anybody that watched them play, say
Yeah.
that was a ball player.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt.
I mean, he could
no
do
doubt
everything.
about that. But I mean, here it is, Al. Oh my God, cats and dogs are living together. In these apocalyptic times when Pete Rose is now, exonerated and.
Yeah, well, I think what this does, though, is it allows even other things now. See, as you start to expand,
well, here's the
the steroid
the steroid guy.
situation.
There you
Right.
go, Al.
Yeah.
There you go.
So all of the guys, like Clemens, like this one, like that, Sosa, all these people, McGuire, all go, you know what? There could be a softening. And hopefully it'll happen before I die, but it might not.
Yeah.
But I think as you see, I always call it the layer, peeling the onion skin. One thing happens, you peel it off, then
Well,
before
here's
you
the
know
thing.
it.
Let me ask you, what former Red Sox player do you think has a better chance right now of getting into the Hall of Fame? Roger Clemens or Curt Schilling?
I see. I like Curt Schilling. I thought he was a great preseason, postseason pitcher.
Yeah.
I think Roger Clemens, prior to the steroids, was the best pitcher the Red Sox have ever had,
One of the best
except
pitchers in baseball, Al.
since Babe Ruth.
One of the best pitchers
So
in baseball.
I don't think Schilling will get in because he alienates the press and the press votes
Right.
in. So I think Clemens. Somebody could say you got two Clemenses. You got the pre and the post, and they were both good.
Yeah.
But the pre won 20, struck out 20 guys twice.
And didn't win a World Series.
Yeah, so
He won a World Series with the
Yankees.
Yankees.
Yeah, I think he'll probably get in quicker than Bonds, quicker
McGuire?
than McGuire, and quicker than. See, if you look at Bonds and McGuire, they both did two things that were different.
Sosa.
I'm going to throw Sosa over here for a second and Palmieri. Throw him over here for a second.
Yeah.
If you look at Bonds and you looked at McGuire, they didn't look like the same person when they came up. McGuire was a skinny 6'5" kid.
I remember those days.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden had Popeye arms and what do you got? And
I remember
Bonds.
when we had your friend Steve Wilsting here, and I told him a story about going into the clubhouse one time when the A's were in town and seeing these two stick figures,
Yeah.
Canseco and McGuire, literally stick figures. And then like within a year's time, I went over there and it was like, it looked like they'd been eating barbells all
Right.
summer long.
Well, it's like
and they're like all
Bonds.
jacked up. And I'm
Bonds-
like, who are these guys?
Bonds' head couldn't
monsters,
Bonds'
yeah.
head couldn't get through this
Oh
door.
my- Have you seen him lately though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He's like, it's like receded.
then you look at Clemens, look the same. Okay, pitcher though.
Big guy. He was
Pitcher.
always a big guy.
Always big.
He was
big
always
for
big.
his
Big hips,
thighs
big
and
thighs.
hips.
That's where he generated all his power.
Right. Same with Sosa. Wasn't a big guy.
Yeah.
Okay, but bat speed and eye coordination seem to have been part of the reason why these. Look at, if you weren't on steroids and you hit a ball in Yankee Stadium 400 feet, it was an out in center field.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're on steroids, it's a home run. So, and you know, Clemens's argument was at the time,
Yeah.
if hitters are using it, why can't pitchers use it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of true,
Yeah.
you know. But then you had Palmeiro, who didn't look like he was using anything and was a great hitter. So, but then
And so I think that, you know, those questions come to mind, and you wonder, well, as you said, is there softening in the stance there? If you allow them to get in,
no,
do you?
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't permanently banned. Those guys.
no. But here's
They
here's
haven't
the
been
thing.
banned,
Here's the thing that's
but they
the
have been in the
difference.
eyes of the voters.
In my opinion, the difference here is you took performance enhancing substances to elevate some of the statistics that you had, all of them, Palmieri, Sosa, and then you've got Shoeless Joe Jackson and Pete Rose that did, let's call it cerebral mistakes here, not physical.
But here's the
That's
thing.
a difference.
They harmed the game.
That's an overriding. That's
Yes.
a macro opinion.
And I think this is where you make the delineation is that you harm the game versus you harm yourself.
Yeah.
You try to improve
So if that's
yourself.
the case, see, a good argument, a good lawyer would argue. Then if that's the case, then FanDuel is hurting the game.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. No doubt.
So and so
No
you
doubt.
can't have it both ways.
Right.
And so I look and say, Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson committed an error of judgment.
Correct.
And all the other people committed errors that enhanced their ability to either pitch or hit or whatever.
Also
And you don't
errors
know
of
what the
judgment,
statistics.
but with the intent to improve themselves.
Yeah. And
you know.
but I
And
look
not-
at
and maybe in a way, was it deceitful in a way? Well, when McGuire comes out and he's taking all these meds and then claiming that he's, eating a lot of steaks and lifting and taking protein shakes and, that's not, there were ill-gotten gains is what
well,
they
you got to
were.
remember one thing.
Yeah.
Years ago, nobody was doing this stuff because nobody had people who were looking at, oh, you can take this, you can take that, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
that are helping them.
right.
Okay, like you got to know that McGuire, when he was hurt,
Yeah,
went to his trainer and he said, if you take this, it's going to help you get
yeah,
better quicker.
yeah,
And that's what's going on. And you see it in the tennis with Sinner.
yeah. And I've seen that. Yeah.
And he came in back yesterday. Of course, he's playing in front of his hometown fans,
Oh,
and he wins.
yeah, there you go.
So,
Well, that helps, man. Hometown cooking. Yeah, especially if it's Italian, right?
exactly.
All righty, my friends, that's going to do it for us. We thank you for spending your time here with Al and I, stepping up to the plate, and we look forward to seeing you next time. All righty, take care.